Alright, welcome back to the MCAT grind. We have Psych, Chapter 10, Social Thinking. Social thinking is different from social interaction in that it relies more on the minds and what's going on inside the head. So, starting off with social behavior, we have attraction, which basically means liking, right? Social attraction, how much you're liking another person. And it's based on several factors, including physical, how good their appearance is, similarity to yourself, whether they share, you both share common grounds like thoughts or processes based on maybe you have a similar ideal in mind or goal in mind. Reciprocity, if you like the person and you know that they like you, you will like them back. And proximity, how close you are physically to the person. Aggression is harm. So aggression can take in multiple forms, physical, verbal, and non-verbal. And they're trying to exert dominance over the other person. Attachment is emotional bond, and usually in children and their caretakers, and is established from a very young developmental age. Secure attachment is when a caregiver gives the kid a good place to return to, and the kid can go out and explore, knowing there's a safe place to come back to. Avoidant attachment is when a caregiver rarely helps them when they're crying or rarely responds to them, and hence the kid doesn't really care whether it's the caretaker or there's a random stranger with them. Ambivalent means half-half. So the caretaker sometimes responds to the child crying, but sometimes doesn't really care about the child, so 50-50. So as a result, the kid gets distressed when the caretaker leaves. However, when the caretaker comes back, they're like, I don't really care. So it's 50-50. Disorganized attachment is when the kid is being abused by their caretaker, and that leads to the kid showing not consistent patterns, but could have repetitive behaviors and is afraid. Social support in social behavior, if you are distressed or need a place to belong, you think mentally you have a network to go to. If you need emotional support, you have people who can help you connect or maybe hear you out. Esteem support, if you have people that can reassure you knowing that you're okay, you're a good person. Material support is when people in your network physically are able to provide for you. For example, your parents, if you're living with them, they provide you with the house to stay in. And you have information social support, which people can help give you information like, ooh, here's the latest MCAT study guide, and this really helped with my 528 score. Network support is knowing and giving you a place to belong to. So for perhaps a calisthenics club, we'll be like, okay, we're all here, we're all improving and striving to get really strong and fit. And you're here, you belong with us. Mating, social behavior, is a natural process as all animals do. There is polygyny and polyandry mating choices, along with monogamy. Monogamy means you only have a single mate. Polygyny means one male with multiple females, and polyandry is one female with multiple males. They're more seen in animals, but sometimes there are humans that does that too. Benefits, sensory and selection, as well as two other factors that influence mating choice. Benefits are physically what you see them in phenotypic parts. Perhaps they have strong limbs, they can offer protection, and they can help you, protect you from the wild. Sensory is if you naturally have an instinct to come towards place with a food, and you like places that are cold, and if the person has cold arms or cold hands, you may choose them. Selection, runaway selection or Fisherian selection is when there's a trait that doesn't particularly help with the mating process, but they just get associated with anyway. We can see that example in peacocks when they have the huge ruffled feathers. They don't really help with their sexual ability, but just because they get picked a lot and very cool, vibrant, they just get picked more often. There's also offspring, for offspring selection. So if you think they can provide better for your offspring in the future, you could also select them more likely compared to others. We also have game theory, so decision making based on several factors. If you have two people and one person gives while the other person takes, and the one person who gives is giving at expense to their self, they're doing altruism. If they're both cooperating and both gaining something, it's cooperation. Spite is when both get something negative. For example, two coworkers, they just keep giving bad rumors about each other because they don't like each other. So as a result, both gets called to the HR. Selfishness is when one benefits but the other one gets lost. So it's the opposite of altruism, where one takes. We have social perception. Cognitive bias is our impression of others, and we attempt to use that impression and categorize the target. So we can assign trait to them, whether they're good or bad, or we think, yeah, this person must be doing this, and in part of our mental set. It's helpful in quickly categorizing people, but also it can be bad because it may make false assumptions about another person's disposition. There's a primacy effect, which means the very first impression gives us our full cue of a person. So if the very first time you meet up with someone and they're late, and you form that effect and say, okay, this person is always late and they're a late person. They never do well in meetings. Recency effect is based on the most recent contact you had with them. So let's say most recently this friend gave me a huge hug, and I will keep that as effect, saying like, okay, this person is so cool, they're so warm, and they give huge hugs to everyone, and they're a great friend. Halo effect, which you assign a person's outer appearance to what they are. So a beautiful person will be like, oh yeah, they must be a good mother, they must be a good worker, and a fantastic person. It's just basically pretty privileges. There's also another thing called just world hypothesis that's similar, based on karma. So good things happen to good people, but bad things happen to bad people. The self-serving bias basically says that whenever you do something good, it's because of your skill, and whenever you do something bad, it's because of the environment. You make excuses. Attribution theory is similar, but you attribute it to others' behavior. So whenever someone do something bad, you call them skill issue, and it's basically their fault. But when someone do something good, you may say, oh, it just based on the situation, it just got lucky, right? And there's an fundamental attribution error where we pick disposition of others more likely when they're making errors, because we don't consider what's going on in their environment. Correspondent interference means when unexpected behavior coming from others that help or hurt us, we consider that to be intentional. So if I'm just walking down the street and this acquaintance I don't know that well suddenly comes up and gives me another coffee, and he just happened to have another coffee, and he just says, oh yeah, I bought an extra coffee and I just saw you out of like this crowd and said, oh, yeah, here's a coffee. And you think that becomes intentional. You think this person is such a great friend and they love you. Attribute substitution is when you apply simple judgment using intuition. So you may consider a really hard thing, like imagine a sphere in a cube, all right? And what's the volume of the sphere in that cube? Now you might not be able to get it, so you simplify it to be much easier to be a circle inside a square instead, and you guess like maybe 75%, but the answer for the sphere in the cube is actually only like 50-ish%. So we tend to make easier substitutions for our brain. Stereotyping is impression based on limited information on a group. So it may be untrue, or it may be just a few negative traits that we consider from others. We may stereotype gamers to be all sweaty, don't shower, but there could also be like real great gamers that help others, and so forth. Prejudice is irrational attitude to a group. It may be based on stereotype, or it may just be falsely heard rumors. So they could be influenced by power, prestige, and class. Power means how much a group holds, prestige is how much respect they get, and class is how much social status they have. So prejudice basically comes in many forms, but there's a dynamic between those with power, prestige, and class, and those without. The with and the without people make a bad negative prejudice against those with, because they're jealous of all that they have, the power, prestige, and class, and those with the power, prestige, class, they form a prejudice on those without as a self-defense mechanism, saying, oh yeah, I have all this because they must have done something bad. So that comes back to attribution theory, as well as halo effect and just world hypothesis. Discrimination is acting upon the prejudice, so irrational behavior to a group. So it could be segregation. They might live in fancy places and cutting off water supply to those without power, prestige, class, making them earn less. Physical actions and behavior. So there's individual versus institutional. Individual might be the person gives you extra hard homework just because they don't like you. And institutional is when a whole organization or a whole society conducts this discrimination on a minority group. For example, maybe certain gender groups are in a minority, so they're being oppressed and repressed. And yeah, that's what we have for social thinking. Good luck.